Bam.
This is Dusty Baker, and you are watching the Break It Down Show.
Come on, man. I love it. First thing in the morning, talking baseball, talking sports. My show has a lot of different, I've had a lot of people on the show. And Dusty, I think you get this because of what you do professionally. I just can't get enough of everything. Like, just, I'll take some of that. I'll take some of that, like, and I don't want to say political issues, but issues that are important to society, to the people, right? So I'll cover those things. Obviously, I cover combat 'cause, I'm a combat veteran and spy, and that all plays. But at my heart, the thing I wanted to do the most was to become you. Like, I would have loved to have been. I mean, look, as a college kid, if you had said you could be a mid-market sports anchor, over the moon. I mean, if you told me I had to start in Billings, Montana, nope, nope. I love Billings, but that would have been fine. But like, let me get up to like Akron, or somewhere like that.
Right.
I would have been thrilled. But that shit is hard, man. So my hat, I'll tip it to you to say, wow, incredible. I love that you get to do this. Can you believe your lucky stars?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. A lot of hard work went into this. You and I talked briefly before the show about just even putting a podcast together, how difficult it can be and how much time it takes, right? And so
Yeah.
the amount of effort, the long days, the grind to get to this point, it's so funny to me because people kind of just assume with our job, oh, you hop on TV for 2 minutes and that's your day, right? And they
Mhm.
don't see the other 10 hours that are accompanied by that, where it's running around shooting video, editing
Yeah.
it. You go to technical issues, right? Like there are so many little things, having to chase somebody down, having to wait like an hour for an interview that takes 2 seconds to get a soundbite. I mean, there's little things like that. And so it's so funny because, from the other side, from the viewer side, it
Yeah.
looks like the dream. And then when you do this, it's like, okay, there's some work involved. But with that being said, it's work that's worth it for sure.
Yeah.
And to have the opportunities that I've had, some of them still kind of blow my mind. So when you talk about like lucky stars, absolutely, that
Yeah.
is an easy way to put it. I think that's a great way to put my personal career and what has gone into really the last 8 to 9 years of my time in this industry. And it kind of goes before that, even with just college. But as far as my professional career, when it really took off, yeah, it's been crazy how it's all aligned, and it didn't come easy. It never comes easy, and so I'm just grateful for what the man above has kind of put in place to get me right now to this point, knowing that there's still more ahead as well.
Yeah, I dig it. Yeah, so here I am, like this baby, reporter trying to be going to back when I went to school, it was, journalism kind of field, but they were trying to separate journalism from mass communications, which is what we call what we're doing now. And you still went out and did reporting stuff, and it was like I wanted to be on RTV, so I took the classes. Every quarter, I took a class in our TV studio doing something, primarily sports reporting, because no one else wanted to do it, and that's what I wanted to do. So you can't get enough tape, and you realize how much you suck, how much you have to get over, how you sound, how you look, and it's crazy. And then like the technical side, there would be those of us that are really we're going for it. We would be there to 2 in the morning sometimes. Maybe I have to. It is college, right? So maybe I'm waiting on an editing bay. And our editing bay were two VCR consoles. So yeah, everybody had to put
Lovely.
it in. Yeah, and
Yeah.
then the edit points would slide
Yeah.
intermittently different lengths, and so you'd be like, oh my god, And
Yep.
some of the guys had mastered that part of it, and they love the technical side. But there are so many disciplines you have to at least be familiar, if not comfortable in. And also, by the way, you have to go out and get your own news. You have to go out and go do this. And everybody will give you a shot because you're a kid, but you're not going to easily walk into the Oakland Coliseum or at the time Candlestick and pull an interview with Roger Craig or Tony Lewis. Like that's possible, but you're not really part of that news crew. So they're just kind of letting you, not a cosplay because you're really doing it, but just that stuff alone, understanding the hustle it takes to get these stories. And I have one more thing to say, and then something crazy breaks out where you're
Yeah.
reporting an
Yeah.
earthquake at the stadium, a
Yep.
tornado touches down, whatever it is. You instantly go from being the goofy, bad jacket wearing sports guy to the leading newsbreaker for
Mhm.
the channel. Wow.
Because you're there, and I mean, and that's a big part of it is being present and you put yourself in those opportunities. I think that's a great way to put it. And for young journalists, I always encourage, do what feels maybe slightly uncomfortable. And so one thing that really, it's funny that you kind of led into this, because it's kind of where my passion is, and it's where my career took off. I had the chance while I was working in tiny little Abilene, Texas, market 165. This was just after my time at TCU. There were opportunities to go cover the Texas Rangers. You had to drive, 2.5, 3 hours to go. You had to do little things here and there. You'd have the top seat in the very back of press row where you could barely see and anything like that, right? Like, and you had to do that. But it gave me the opportunities to be able to actually cover the 2020 MLB postseason, which was great. And so, I grew up a diehard Dodgers fan. And so it just happened to be in my lifetime, that was the first time the Dodgers had won it all. And so to cover that, and not just the Dodgers, but the postseason as a whole, because I kept kind of building a little niche in, that ballpark at that time, it was Globe Life Field. Then it turned to, what we had, or I guess it was Globe Life Park, now Globe Life Field. So that's how it all worked out, kind of establishing myself from the start to where I ended up getting. And a lot of it was being present, understanding how to navigate game days, how to navigate speaking to players. And you mentioned it. I mean, you got to be on your toes because something significant happens, like the pandemic in 2020. Hey, guess what? I know how to navigate through these things. I know how to do this job. Send me there so I can do what you guys need me to do. So I helped the Next Star company by reporting on essentially what all took place in Arlington and at a market 165, right? And Abilene, I got to give Abilene a lot of credit. The people that I worked with, man, I mean, they really gave me a lot of opportunities to grow. And I'm really, really grateful for that, because that was where my career development started. And so, my sports director, David Robinette, supported me in doing stuff like that. And, that's something that I really appreciate. My news director, Travis Ruiz, was like instrumental in allowing me to do something along those lines and actually pushed for me to do something like that. So it's not like it was just on me, right? Like, I had to have people that supported me and allowed these things to happen. And so I'm very grateful for that. And, now you fast forward to my time in Louisville, and, Kendrick Haskins, sports director here, that it's like my older brother almost is the best way to put it. He gave me this opportunity, and now I'm covering U of L, UK, IU. You got the Bengals, the Reds. I mean, it's crazy all that we cover. And it's like a pinch me moment sometimes where I'm like, even in the stress of the situation, hey, like, as a kid, man, I dreamed of covering this, man. Yeah. Like opening day Reds this year, I walked on the field and I'm like, man, I remember as a kid, I like fell in love with this ballpark. And now I'm standing on the field working, like, and doing something awesome with that. So that was very cool. A lot of full circle moments in this job. And I just think that it's been really special.
I got things I want to get to, but I got to mention this too, because again, this goes to what your job is and where you're doing your job. And I've met several dudes now that were on the field in LA in '88 in the ninth inning of game one. One was Ned Coletti, who ultimately back then was a reporter, moved up to become a GM. Improbable path. Anybody can do anything. And he was like, I was there, and I had, the A's, and I had the winning interview lined up, and I was getting ready to shove a mic in someone's face, and Kirk Gibson changed everybody's plan. And he's like, and he has no time for the homer, right? Like, he's like, I'm working. He had to get from clubhouse to clubhouse and figure out what the hell he was going to do, because he hadn't talked to anybody. Look, he's a reporter. He's going to find the interview. But all of that took that tiny amount of time to compress it and say, totally different show. And by the way, as you know, in his ear, everybody's screaming, because the entire game has flipped the entire story.
Sure.
And so when you're working, and the other guy's a guy named Andrew Friedman, not that Andrew Friedman. This is the guy who is the cameraman for the NBA and also has done a lot of stuff. You guys have all seen his shots. He was lined up. He's like, I was going to run out and get a picture Dennis Eckersley. And he's like, then I
Of
had to run
course.
onto the field and I had to position myself. And because look, here's the thing, everybody, Andrew had to be first. You got
Right.
to go and get that low shot, hero shot coming up. And here comes Gibson, if
Right.
you can even get it, because the team crowd, and so he is working. Yes, it's the most exciting moment that we all got to share. Vin Scully shuts up for 90 seconds, said that in the year the most probable, the impossible to happen, and then shut
Best
up for
call of
another
all
30
time.
seconds. Yeah. And then almost 2 straight minutes of silence. It's so crazy, right? By then, like Andrew Freeman's like, chicka, 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 and he's in the right spot, getting the right shots because he and Ned were working.
Yeah. I think it's pretty cool that you listed three different individuals with three different roles to tell a story in three different ways, right? And so,
Yeah.
and I think that's, some people, and I've been told this, and I think it's probably the thing I disagree with the most,
Mm.
that sports isn't real journalism. I've been told that. And what you just said right there is exactly why this is journalism. What we do is report on something in a unique way to tell a good story, right? That's what we do. And that's what I'm most passionate about, is telling the stories of whose voices haven't been heard. And
Yeah.
so there's so many different ways of doing it. And so many people have different roles to be able to tell that. And so that was an amazing way to kind of put that together, because yeah, you have the general reporter that's running around trying to get, all sorts of different sound, or get the visual on it. You get the photographer that has to get that perfect angle. And then you get Vin Scully, who has one of the most legendary calls of all time, where he speaks for barely any of that, right? And
Yeah.
it's just,
Right.
it's fascinating. And so, and it's where I really fell in love with this too. Vin Scully was and is and will always be my hero. I mean,
Sure.
I literally have on my wall, you can't see it, but directly next to me is a pullout. It's one of the LA Times that says The Voice, and it honors Vin Scully from September 25 of 2016 when he was retiring. And I look up at that every day before I, head to work, and I think to myself, this is my hero. This is who I aspire to be like. I won't be the next. I'm not Vin Scully, right? Like
Sure.
nobody can be Vin Scully, but you can have a way of going about your business the way Vin Scully does, right? Or did. And the way that he carried professionalism, he was funny. He sometimes didn't even try to be, and he still told incredible stories. And
Yeah.
that's where I really fell in love with this industry. And it's where my passion was, on top of being a massive sports fan. And of course, baseball has been my true love. I love football. I'm a huge football guy as well, but baseball was my first love and my true love, and it's why I went into this thing. So I can thank Vin in a lot of ways for his storytelling, and it goes back to that Gibson night. And my dad was actually in attendance for that game as a fan. So needless to say, it's pretty crazy. A lot of elements took place there, and my own pops was out there as well.
Yeah. That's neat. Yeah, and obviously your name Dusty Baker, not a coincidence. It's a design, and that's a lot of fun. What's the requirement for having that name?
Oh man, I don't know if I'm the best one to have that requirement. I don't know if I satisfy it.
That's what I was saying.
Basically,
Like, what does it
yeah,
mean? I mean, like,
it's it's crazy, man. It's
if
been
you
so
go get
wild.
drunk and get pulled over and like you
Oh,
kill someone,
exactly.
heaven forbid,
Oh,
and it's like Dusty Baker kills,
yeah,
like you
and
just did that to that man.
add TV anchor to that. Yeah, I mean, it would
Yeah.
not go well. It would definitely make some headlines in all the worst ways. No, I mean, speaking of having pictures, I mean, here we got this right here.
Oh,
I
look at
I
that.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've got Dusty merch pretty much everywhere, and it's a big reason because
You got
so
wristbands?
I don't have those. I do wish I had those. I do have toothpicks somewhere, so I think
Okay.
that's an element that's worthy of showing at some point. But my dad did grow up a diehard baseball fan, and obviously had the last name Baker, and so he would sit in left field quite a bit. And back in those days, when there wasn't security on security, you could throw like candy and whatnot to the players. So my dad would like give Dusty Baker bubble gum and whatnot. He just thought Dusty was like the coolest person. And so, he had a passion for baseball. And so he wanted to name his son, if he had one, Dusty. And so, lo and behold, here we go. Here's this little baby named Dusty. And so they write Dusty Baker a message saying, hey, just had a newborn and want you to meet him. So Dusty responded. So they carried me over the fence when I was like 4 or 5 months old. And so Dusty, there's a picture of me. It's on Twitter. It's pinned at the top, and it's him holding me. And I'm like a little tiny baby. He's the San Francisco Giants manager. You fast forward like a year later, they brought us down to the dugout so we could hang out with him before the game. I guess I caused a little disruption as a 1-year-old and thought the mound was really cool, so I decided to sprint to it. I don't obviously remember this thing, but I would do the same thing now. And then, over the years, I've had the chance to see him, and I actually had a full circle moment with him on opening day back in 2022 with the Astros. And I was reporting in California at that time, kind of on my own accord, went down to opening day Angels. And so I interviewed Dusty. I asked him a question. Then afterwards, I was like, hey, man, by the way, this is Dusty again. And he remembers every single time. It's crazy. You would think based off all the people that he meets, and I'm probably not the only person that's met him that's like, hey, my name's Dusty too. But he really takes the time, and he's always been that way. And he's a great model, I think, for young adults or, kids through the game too, because he's just classy. He is beloved. And I'll be honest, like, I'm very lucky my name trended the way that it has, because, like, imagine if my name was OJ, right? Like I always say that all the time. It's like, imagine if your parents named you OJ and how badly that falls off. But like with Dusty's just been a class act, whether it be dealing with me, my family, with fans, and everywhere I go and I say my name is Dusty Baker, I do expect at this point, like, okay, yeah, somebody's going to ask, like, is that your real name? Or I get a lot of, wow, y'all look similar or something like that. I get it all the time. And I mean, it's funny though, because like you could either sit there and be like, oh, this is annoying, this keeps happening. No, it's a good man, a great man to be named after, right? Like, and he really does garner a lot of respect, and you can tell based off of just the general population, based off interactions that I've had. And so it's super cool because it's an interesting story, right? And it goes back to that, right? And so it really actually is probably a key reason why it fueled my initial love for baseball, because you tell me I'm named after a Major League Baseball player. All right, well, I guess I got to be one too, right? So growing up, I wore the number 2 and 12 after him, and eventually 27. I kept the number 2 in my number every time. I think if I was to choose now, I'd probably stick to just the number 2, but I did it as a way to kind of honor him, and it was really special to be named after him, and it still is. And I get written a lot about it on Twitter, and I think I've been told at least once a month, hey, you need to change your name. I'm like, I guess. I mean, I'm not going to, but you can tell me all you want, but that ain't happening.
It's a gift. It's a gift.
It's a gift.
You don't know that going in. Like you said, what happens if you turn into OJ? Your dad's like, hey, I love the name Ray. You're a Ray Caruth. Just like, like, sorry.
Right. Your last name's Rice, and all of a sudden you're like, Ray Rice. Yeah. It's just, you have to be so lucky. And my fiance and I have tentatively, and this is tentatively, we've agreed to try to keep this tradition alive. We're not naming our future kid after a Baker athlete, because there's really not one that's out there right now at the moment with the last name Baker. And you could argue Baker Mayfield right now is probably the biggest name with the name Baker that's an athlete. But I've been touched by Clayton Kershaw's story. It goes beyond him being a legend on the hill. He's a fantastic human being. He serves the Lord. He's just incredible as a person, and he does a lot of work in Africa. And I think a lot of people don't know just how big of a mission he and his wife Ellen serve. And I had the chance to interview him as like some scared. You talked about it being in college, right? Like you're just new novice. I was some like scared, puppy-eyed college student. I think I was a junior maybe at TCU. And Clayton actually came to TCU to preach, something that you would think is very out of his comfort zone, and it might have been, but he was incredible. And you can actually see his whole sermon on YouTube, on my YouTube. But I interviewed him, and he was just the nicest human being, handled it super well for some awkward kid that still had a lot of learning experience ahead of him. But we're tentatively talking about naming our first boy Clayton,
Mm.
just after Clayton Kershaw. And I feel like Clayton Baker kind of flows too. Like Clay, like it would probably be Clayt. I'd probably be like, hey Clay, you swinging at a pitch low and away, don't do that. Like that's too far outside the zone. So we've already thought about this thing, but
Yeah.
we do want to keep the baseball, name alive. And so at the very least, like a tribute to who has been my favorite player, but also a great human being.
Yeah.
And we know Clayton Kershaw's going to trend well. He's going to wind up having like 9 children, and probably one of them will end up being in a class with one of our future kids. So
Yeah.
that would be weird for his son or daughter, but we want to we want to be able to have kind of an important namesake with that. And yeah, so that's tentatively how we're going to try and keep this thing alive.
Yeah. Well, and that kid instantly, you at least got to ask, but like, hey, Clayton, I want you to be the godfather to my kid, Clayton, you know?
Right, exactly. Like,
Yeah.
and as long as he already doesn't have 90 kids to look over, like
Yeah.
here's
Yeah.
one more, man. Like, and
But,
he knew me for what, 5 minutes. Like,
mhm.
hey, now you know me for 5 minutes. Here's my kid. Nah, but
Yeah.
that's how Dusty handled this thing. Is what's crazy
Right.
is like he could have easily just been like, oh, cool, thanks. And he
Yeah.
like actually really embraced it. And maybe the craziest story that I have with him is when I started looking for universities. My parents and we flew to Cincinnati. This is back when we were living in California, so this was a pretty significant,
Yeah.
flight out there. And I wrote him and said, "Hey, we're going to a Reds game," when he was the manager of the Reds. Want to say hi. That's all I said. I had one of those stupid little flip phones at the time that didn't really do anything like at all. They didn't hold a charge. So it was completely dead by the end of my flight. I'm like I think I was in like 10th grade, 10th or 11th.
Mhm.
And so we get to the ballpark in Cincy, and just in time. We walk down to the dugout, and Dusty walks right to us. Like, took no time. We're like, it's almost like he actually did read what I wrote. So he comes up, he's like, "Do you guys get my message?" And I'm like, no, didn't get the message. He's like, "Oh, I left you 4 tickets behind home plate at will call." I'm like, where, what? It sucks to have a bad phone, I guess. So
Yeah.
after this trip, or after the game, go back, charge my phone, and I have a voicemail left from him. And it was the funniest voicemail. And this phone sucks because it kills voicemails in 2 weeks. Like, you
Yeah.
can't save it. And so
Yeah.
I remember telling all my friends, like, "Oh, Dusty Baker left me a voicemail," and none of them believed me. And I'm like, that really sucks. But his voicemail was, "Hey, this is Dusty. I'm calling for Dusty. Just want to let you know we left you 4 tickets, and it's at will call, and can't wait to see you tonight." And I think he had to be like very vague about him. Like, he didn't say this is Dusty Baker. He was
Right.
just like, this is Dusty. I think I'm calling Dusty. So it was just really funny. I wish I could grab that. I'm very bummed that that's just somewhere gone in 15, 16 years ago. But
Yeah.
that was a really cool, like, mental heart moment. Like, I knew it happened. My friends didn't believe me. Whatever.
Yeah,
It was
well,
pretty
I mean,
cool.
come on. Yeah, and now it's
Yeah,
time to believe you now. It's like, why
yeah,
would you lie
yeah,
about that? And of course,
yeah,
Dusty would do that. I lived
yeah.
in Wrigleyville, across the street from Wrigley Field,
Uh huh.
when he came to town. After I
Okay.
guess after he left the Reds, and
Yeah,
so I knew people that encountered him every
yeah,
single time. And look, this is where that major league coaching on how to like be a major leaguer comes in. Everybody who encountered him was like, great guy, great guy, great guy,
right.
and they adored him because he was adorable
Yeah,
and he knew how to do that. And the pro managers get that. They're like, I am part of this community. I'm not just some dude who just lives here. I'm going to be talking to these people all the time. And those guys, they get it, right? And I don't know how they coach up on that, but they got tons of people, there's all kinds of press people internally that are like, hey, here's what you say, here's how you do it. But you don't have to. And some guys certainly are surly, because they've got a job that's highly competitive, and very competitive people get into that. I mean, Barry Bonds is only kind of warmed up post baseball,
right,
right? And so
right.
we have this reality of, you're going to join a community in a high pressure situation. A lot of people are going to be pissed at you every single night,
Yep, yep.
but you
In
still have
minor
to be a
decisions.
sweetheart. Yeah,
Yep,
yeah,
minor
yeah. Right, right.
decisions. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
That's funny.
He really is a special human being, and I think people in baseball started to realize that, especially later in his career.
Hmm.
And I think one of the coolest things is when Houston wins the World Series, a lot of people weren't particularly happy with the Astros. I'm not going to confirm nor deny with myself, but they all were happy for him.
Sure.
And I think that was really cool. And, he's such a classic old school baseball guy that, the final out's very obviously about to be recorded, a little fly out to right field. And he still has got his pencil, his paper. He's finishing, because he's keeping score throughout the game. And you see him marking it down like while everybody else around celebrating. And then they all celebrate around him. I mean, he's just such a cool old school guy. And I've heard just countless stories about him because of interacting and with people on social media and whatnot. I know Zach Efron had like a significant encounter with him that I believe he talked about on Hot Ones, and just like how special it was as a little kid to meet Dusty Baker and have
Yeah.
Dusty like double down and come back to him. So it's just people have so many different stories. It's been really awesome to hear. And to me, it's super cool because we do have some, even if it's not a major one, we have somewhat of a connection because of this now. Like, and I think that is super special. And so yeah, super grateful for the namesake working out okay.
Yeah. That's the. I was gonna. We were talking about Cub reporters and coming up. So in 2020, one of my really good friends, Scott Husing, lost a friend because we're military guys and we're well connected. We lose a lot of friends, but this was a guy he grew up with and drank himself to death. And so this is right in the raging part of COVID, July. Or he's going to go bury his friend, and his family's like, please come out to South Carolina from California. And he's like, what I think I'm going to do is just get on my motorcycle and just deal with it and drive across and let that be sort of how I get my head right. And I'm like, that's fine. You do that. You're not doing that alone. I'm not going to have you just on a motorcycle driving through the desert by yourself. And so we, it turns out we invented this thing called Save the Brave, or not Save the Ride for the Brave from Save the Brave. That's a charity we were both working with at the time. And we started doing this every year. It became a thing for like 4 years. It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot of a lot. And that first year was just him and I, me and my pickup truck following him. And I just, chest full of ice water. And I mean, ice and water in the chest, drinks,
Oh,
of course,
wow.
and everything else.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He would take his hands and put them into the ice water because his hands would be burning,
Oh,
So it was kind of like, I like to call it a veteran Ramadan, where like there's this enforced suffering, that we had to do. Anyhow, along the way, we would do press hits. And and I'm going to speak a different language to everybody, out in Pecos, they had a guy, Cub reporter, right? And he came out and met us either there or in Midland, somewhere in that Odessa, Midland, Pecos area. And this is like tin cup hot. Like it's
Yep.
super hot out there.
Oh, it's bad. It's bad out there because Abilene's not far from there either. So
Right.
you're talking
That's why I bring it
like
up. Yeah.
105 with like humidity. I mean, it's
Yeah.
brutal.
Oh yeah. And so this, I don't remember the kid's name, but he came out and he's just trying to sort it out. Same era as you. Like he's like, I'm doing stuff out here. Maybe we were in Midland. Anyhow, we picked a special spot. Oh, it was what's his name? Chris Kyle's statue. And
Okay, gotcha.
we did it
Yeah.
there at that spot, and he drove out. But this is the Cub reporter job. So he's covering all of these things. And as you know, like Midland, Odessa, they aren't that far apart, but they're not next to each other. Like you got to drive to be between these places.
Yeah.
And everywhere else, wherever the news is, he's got his. And so this goes back in time, back when I was trying to break into the industry. I didn't, but I met a guy from out here in the Bay Area where I was from. There was a guy who had a Pinto. I was at a Costco. That's where I worked, and for whatever reason, I struck up a
Great place to
conversation.
work. Great place to
Yeah,
work.
no, it was great. And I was pushing carts, and I meet this guy, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm a reporter for KGO." I'd never even heard of this guy. He's like, "Yeah, of course not. I'm the guy when you're like," and he drove a company car, and it was a Pinto. I'm the guy they send to places. So I just kind of drive around and listen to the radio, and I go to wherever the story is. And then I'm the guy who's on the ground. That's why you never hear of me, because I'm just there to tell this. And I mean, this is a gritty, hard news guy. He got me into KGO, and I talk to people and everything else. But that's what this kid's doing. He's doing the modern version of that. Like, what do you mean two dudes are coming to town and one of them is riding a motorcycle? All right, I'll go cover that. And so he runs out there, right? And we did all kinds of places. Like if we had gone through Kentucky, we would go through Kentucky and do the local media there. Maybe sometimes it's in studio, but sometimes it's out by the Chris Kyle statue. all of you guys back in 2020 who had to figure that out had to go out, couldn't be afraid of getting COVID because you had to go where the people were and where the story was and put your microphone in someone's face. Of course, you can mitigate risk, but still, you could not stay inside. You had to go. And I'm going to shut up here in a second. My journalism training, my TV reporter training came in handy. I was a spy. And when you're a spy, you're part salesman and so are you. And you're also part news reporter. So I've got to go out and figure out where the story is. I don't always get to control where I go, but I can always talk to people. And so the second I show up, I need to be ready for anything so I can tell the story of what happened. In this case, it's intel related. But that all comes from the discipline I learned. And you don't think you learn much in college. You're like, this is dumb. I took journalism class, like the straight up journalism class. My buddy and I went and got drunk in the student union before we came in and did our final because we had to just write
it's the right way to do it.
Yeah.
That's the right
Like, this is how they do it. Right? So we got hammered, came in, typed our story, turned it in, got our B and got out of there.
Hey, that's the only way you can do it, right?
That's real news. Not getting drunk, but that's how real news works is you get so good at writing the story. The writing part is automatic. It's the motion on the battlefield that gets you to the place where even if everybody else, so I'm with an Army unit, everybody else is asking questions in one certain way, and I'm asking and reporting in a totally different fashion. So when the commander reads my stuff, he's like, who the hell is that guy? Get him in my office. How did you get all this? Or why is your story so different than what everybody else is telling? And it's because that's what news reporters do.
Yeah, and you have to adapt, right? Like that's the key. And I think that's the easiest way to sum it up is you have to be able to adapt and go out and fight for your story. You have to fight for the content that maybe somebody else isn't trying that hard for. It's funny because COVID was obviously a massive part of kind of where my career trajectory was.
Right.
I had to temporarily stop doing sports because there were no sports going on during that time. So I did a lot of news reporting, and honestly, it was kind of funny because returning back to a general reporter, which is how I actually cracked into this industry, was a general reporter. I started realizing that as a sports anchor and sports reporter, you do so much on the ground and how much you have to put in that it's not really a shot at any news reporter or news anchor, but I was able to do news reporting fairly well. Like it was pretty fairly, I'd say, easy to find stories and go out and accomplish that because of how often we had to do that in sports and find those tiny, tiny little things. Well, looking up, getting press releases or looking up, it wasn't events at that time because there were no events, but just simply thinking, okay, let me think about my community. How can I interact with these people? Who's being impacted here and here? It really wasn't as challenging as on paper I thought it might be, having to make that adjustment. And then we did have to do something to kind of, spice things up and give people at home something to look forward to or cheer for. Yeah. And it was a massive risk to do this because you could have almost said it was borderline unprofessional with the way that we did it. But this was also small market. So we were able to kind of pull this off. My co-host or my co-anchor, Max Preston's his name, he was on board with this. I was like, we should do like a competition because COVID was just at that time, you didn't know how long this was going to go for and nothing was open. So every Sunday for our sportscast, we did something called the Sanitizer Series, and we would just compete in something dumb, right? Like, and we'd take video of it and we'd put it on TV and we'd have people vote for it, vote for one of us on who they thought was going to win. And like, I don't know why, but the whole city loved it. Like it came out of nowhere. Like it was just this spur of the moment idea. Like, hey, we should really shake things up and try to give people something to look forward to. So, and so we called it the sports of our city. And, we had football coaches tweeting at us oh, I think Dusty's going to win this one. It was really wild actually. And we did home run derby and schools would volunteer their fields for us to use. So we would do home run derbies and track events and, football contests and golf, mini golf in a backyard of one of our workers. It was just insane how we were able to put that together. But creativity was part of what got me through COVID a little bit. And then, on the journalistic side of things, it's you really have to open your mind a little bit. And how can I find a good story at a time
Yeah.
when it feels like nothing's happening, but there is. I mean, everybody is impacted in some way, right? And so you have to find those that are impacted or who has a wild story or a significant story during a time when a lot of us were just at home. And you
Yeah.
kind of mentioned it. I never worked from home. I've never done that. That is never happened in my time in this industry because of having to be on the ground, getting the interviews. And the wildest thing for me was moving from Texas back to California
Mm.
because Texas at the point that I had moved, it was, I believe it was February or March of 2021. Texas at that point has basically opened up like 85, 90%. I moved to California and it's still like fully shut down. So here I
Yeah.
am, like, I'm used to having people again back in my newsroom and doing normal stories. Sports is back. I did the postseason. I'm coming off this like really actually emotional high from covering that and then getting this job in San Luis Obispo. And I get to Slow and they're like, yeah, so welcome to the station, but you're not going to meet everybody or anybody in person. Like
Yeah.
you're just going to
Yeah.
meet everybody digitally. I'm like, all right, like great. And so I had like no friends for the first 6 months of being there. I remember I had sent out a text to like just people at my station, like that I had just gotten there. This was kind of gutsy of me, but like it's just kind of what I do. Like I try to be friends with people pretty immediately when I move somewhere. So I got numbers of like 6 or 7 people that I had just met at work. I'm like, hey, you guys all want to like go somewhere to get a drink or whatever? Like, let's do it. Not one answer, not one response. Nobody even had nobody even texted back saying, sorry, like would love to, but can't. Like didn't even get that. And so
Yeah.
that was what I transitioned to. So that was a little tricky. And I don't talk too much about my journey in Slow, but that was a challenge, I would say. And you're gonna have highs and lows in this industry.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely it was a wild time, you know. Look, it just and this is not about me, it's about you, but I was in a head-on collision with an Abrams tank, and I was in a little like
Oh,
minibus, you know.
oh
And so when someone's like, "Hey, you got to be afraid of this thing," and I'm like, "Not too late. That's not going to
yeah,
happen." It's not that I
yeah,
didn't
yeah,
respect the fact that it was dangerous. Not that I didn't respect who I was going to interact with, but when you drive across the nation and you see how every different state that we drove through was handling it. In 2020, I went to Dallas, and they had a multi-hundred person party. It was outside.
yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, I'm driving across the nation. I
Right,
can't bring this, I don't, nobody knows what's happening or how it deals with
right,
it. I know
yeah,
enough about science, hashtag not a scientist, that I know I'm not going to get sick on the golf course. Nobody else is going to get sick with me. I'm not going to get sick playing tennis. I'm not going to get sick going to the beach. It's impossible to get sick like that going to the
right.
beach. And so I figured I'm probably okay here in Dallas, but it was so many people, and I didn't know who else we were going to meet. And so I told Scott, I'm like, you can stay down here because he's face man. Like, I'm going to go get some rest and not get any more exposed than I have to. And so I tried to do the right thing. But you go to the next state and the next state, and I'm like, these people do not care.
No,
Like,
no, it was a crazy difference. Like
it was
you're talking
huge.
about, it's so significant. Like I've been very fortunate, Pete, to be able to have worked in a lot of places, right,
Right.
and moved to a lot of places, and I've lived abroad briefly. Like it's been a good life experience, and for those people out there, like you're listening to two people that have traveled a lot and been a lot of places, and I think there's some serious value
Yeah.
to seeing the world, and then you get to pick and choose what you like, what you don't like, and everything like that. But it was quite crazy. I'm not gonna lie, going
Yeah.
because I went to school in Texas, and then going from Abilene after Fort Worth, Abilene to San Luis Obispo. I mean, it was like going from a different country to a different country. It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
absolutely crazy. And now I'm in Kentucky, and Kentucky is like this wild blend almost of
Yeah.
it's not really California, but a lot more of Texas than it is California. But it's a blend of like the North and the South and the East Coast. Like it's very interesting out here because you
Yeah.
have such a wild dynamic. So have been very fortunate to been able to go to these different places. And man, I've fallen in love with Louisville. By the way, I
Yeah.
feel like I should mention that this is a wonderful place. It's totally underrated.
Yeah.
And I had a
Yeah.
couple buddies come out here just this past week that are living in LA, and they even said to me, they're like, dude, I did not expect this to be as
Hmm.
cool and as unique as it is.
Yeah.
It's amazing here. It like actually is amazing. I don't know how Kentucky became considered like a flyover state
Yeah.
because it has so much to offer, from Churchill Downs and the Derby to the bourbon scene that's out here and the Bourbon
Yeah.
Trail. And then everything beyond that too. I mean, it's just you have a lot of different pockets that are so special here. So, journalism took me here, and that's the beauty of this industry, is like you kind of have to be open to opportunity. And I
Yep.
hate to say it, but I know that I'm not going to be here much longer, and so I'm trying to enjoy it while I can before
Sure.
my next jump, which is going to be another cross country move. So
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to promote yourself, right, and stay relevant. And when you find a place, I think about Walt Gray from Sacramento. He started as a news reporter, just sticking his hand, running around, getting stories, and then had a guy underneath him, and now has been for 25 years the news anchor for the CBS station in Sacramento. He found a spot, he got comfortable, didn't do sports anymore at all. Maybe he as a sporty kind of guy, but that's not his job. His job is something different. And so you're right, like you have to move on until you find the place you're like, this is where we're going to settle.
yep.
And as much as you can love Kentucky, Louisville, that's not the place. But you are so right about its proximity to everything and how beautiful Kentucky. If you were to drive east from Louisville towards
Oh,
Frankfurt,
oh
it's
yeah.
just gorgeous,
Stunning,
gorgeous, gorgeous. Yeah,
stunning. I mean,
yeah,
and Lexington too. And I'm glad you
yeah.
mentioned Frankfurt, because Frankfurt is just a beautiful area. And my fiance's mom has like a bakery in downtown, and
Oh,
it's called Bee's Bakery. I'm not joking. These are the best cookies in the
yes,
world. Like
I love
my
it.
friends, we drove through there, and I was like, you guys do need to try this. And so they went through. They're like, okay, that I hate you for doing this, because now we're not just getting this until like when my fiance and my wedding happens. So they're gonna have to wait a little bit for that. But
Yeah.
and we will have a Kentucky wedding. But my fiance just took a job in Seattle, so she's a news anchor, and she's working at King 5. So pretty
Yeah.
simple to say that I know exactly where the next chapter will be taking
Oh,
me. And
mhm.
it's
Yeah.
a lot of people have been like messaging on the socials, and they're like, so are you going to join your fiance in Seattle? I'm like, well, yes. Like there's no easy way. Like, yeah,
Right.
I'm
Just be
not going to,
honest. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not going to not be with my fiance. So
Right.
that's just the reality of it. And I love
Do you
Seattle. I
guys
actually
have an
work.
agreement on how this works? Because you're talking about a very complex thing, and there's no
Sure,
reason to aspire to any higher market than Seattle. Like this
sure.
legitimately could be the place you guys settle, and if not, you know, let's say like you get a national gig at Fox
Hmm.
Sports. Okay, you probably could work out of Seattle in that case, probably.
Right.
But if you guys got pulled to an even bigger market, I mean, you really have won the lottery in terms of
Yeah.
news if you're there working. How does this work? I mean,
Well,
can one of you
step one.
uproot the other? Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Step one, I won the lottery just by even dating her for a day. So
attaboy. Yeah,
yeah, I'm just like, I'm riding with it, and I'm like, okay,
yeah,
I'm pretty grateful for everything. And so it's kind of crazy. I'll tell you this real quickly, and then I'll answer. So
yeah.
she and I met. I was like less than a full week into work here, and it was my off day, and it was like the worst day in Louisville's history. There was a shooting in downtown, and so I decided I needed to just like help out the station in some way. So I went in. This was actually technically my first full week working in
Oh wow.
Louisville. Yeah, I mean, you talk about quite the way to start out. This was it. And so I went around, and I helped a reporter like door knock and whatnot. Anyways, I told them I could do a story. I did news reporting. Like, I know how to do
Right.
this. So they're like, okay, why don't you go to this vigil and do a story on that? So I'm like, okay. And they're like, before you do, can you drop off these Gatorades to our reporter who's been like dying in the heat in downtown for like 9 hours? I'm like, yeah, of course. So I find a random parking spot. It's really impossible to park at down there. And I see this like beautiful girl walking out of a tire shop. I'm like, this doesn't check out. This doesn't make any sense. So I talked to her. I could tell immediately she was on the news, and it was her. And lo and behold, like a week later, we went on our first date. We found out we had the same birthday and lived in the same apartment complex, and so in same industry, obviously. And that was pretty much the initial sign that it was meant to be. So we knew from that point kind of that this is how this was going to go down. And I
Yeah.
proposed to her like a week before she actually left for Seattle. She thought she was going to MC an event, and I coordinated something at the Derby Museum where she walked in. She's all like dressed up, super nice. And then a video plays on the board because they told her like, oh, this is like the video before when you're supposed to speak, so just watch it. And then
Hmm.
the video shows, and it's like me anchoring, and it like confused her. She's like, what is happening? And then I like run off set. It's a whole thing. It's online.
Yeah.
And then there's a video that pops up like in pictures of us. And exactly.
Northwestern.
It all went down. It was our song is like Thank God by Kane Brown. It's a great song, and his
Great.
wife's in it too. It's a
Yeah.
great song. And so I had that play in the background, and you could tell the moment that song hits, like the moment it starts and the video begins, she's starting to bawl. Like she's just bawling
Yeah.
her eyes out. And I was like, all right, we did it okay. So anyways, I got very lucky meeting her, getting dating
Yeah.
and getting engaged. So then our talk always has been like, what do we do in the industry? Because she's a news
Right.
anchor, news reporter. And I think the big thing was, well, whoever gets the job first, the other person's just going to have to follow, right? And so
Yeah.
at one point, we thought it might have been me to do it first because there was a certain opening with the Detroit Tigers, and then things kind of got weird because of ownership and whatnot. So for a moment there, we thought we were moving there. And then she gets this email, and I'll preface it by saying I have worked at the University of Washington before. Like I've worked in Seattle before. My brother lives in Seattle. My best friend from home lives in Seattle. My parents live in Idaho. So all these connections to the
Perfect.
Pacific Northwest. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great. I mean, it's fantastic. And so she gets this email from King 5, and I'm like, I know King 5. Like I know that station really well. It's really, really good. Like
Yeah.
they're one of the best in the country. And so she's like, yeah, I know it too. And she actually worked in Washington State in the Tri-Cities. That was her first small market. And so she knew the state of Washington and therefore King 5 as well. So a lot of the pieces were in place, and we're like, I think, our whole lives, God's kind of set things up in weird ways that have
Yeah.
been pretty obvious to us. And we were like, this kind of feels like this is where it's supposed to be. So, yeah, our agreement has basically been, we just need to pursue our dreams, and the other person has the mutual respect to push that direction, right? Like, we're not going to go our separate ways. And if one of us gets a national job, great, then we're going to support the other person. Like, whoever it is, if she gets a national job, I'm supporting her in any way I can, and wherever we need to live, we
Right.
will, and
Yeah.
vice versa. I mean, she knows my ultimate goal is to work in baseball in some capacity, whether that's covering a team or working for MLB Network or something of the like you said, Fox Sports, something of the equivalent. And barring former major league players not taking the jobs that I want, because that's also the way this industry is starting to go, is they're just hiring former players. But if there is an opportunity to bring good journalism to something like this, or if ESPN decides to reinvest in baseball instead of pushing away, it seems like they're on the right track to starting to get back on the right track. That is something that I'd be on board with to jumping into as well. But we're going to support each other no matter what the case is, and there's just that kind of mutual respect, I think, that she and I have developed, and it's not a common thing. And I think you have to have a lot of trust, a lot of faith in the other person. And we just do, right? Like, I think that's
Hmm.
part of it, is we just naturally do. And that's why this was meant to be from the beginning. So I'm just very grateful for her. And she probably is going to end up listening to this the whole way. So I bet you by this point, if she's listening, she's probably tearing up, because that's who she is. But it's so true, man. Like I'm just very, very grateful for what God's given me, and the relationship she and I have is special. And we'd like to think that we both try to have the same passions align, and help
Right.
other
Right.
people, and really, it goes beyond just trying to be on screen, right? Like you're trying to make an impact and use your platform that you're presented with to help those around you. And so I'm super proud of her. I'm like very, very proud of her, because, and this is my little humble brag on her. She grew up like acting and dancing and all this stuff, and she did like Miss Ohio. She grew up in Ohio, and so she finished second in Miss Ohio. So she's done all these different competitions, whatnot. Well, in Louisville, we have this Dancing with the Stars competition, and it's a mutual, like, obviously you do a dance just like Dancing with the Stars, and then you have to raise money and support for, charities within the region. So she supported the food kitchen out here, and she raised like $26,000 for that charity, and also won the dancing competition. And I'm like, all right, that's my girl right there. Like, I'm very proud of her. So that was really cool. And yeah, we support each other. We're each other's biggest fans, and I'd like to think that my fiance, soon to be wife, is the best anchor out there. So I'm very proud of her.
I love it. Yeah, yeah. And if you want, I can continue to sing "Time of My Life" for you.
Oh yeah, please do. Please keep it in the background. I feel like it's a really good
Right.
like way to keep
Yeah.
this thing going.
That's right. While you talk, I'll just back here. I'll just freestyle. Yeah.
I think I need at least give me the melody. That's all I want.
Right. All right. So I want to dig in a little bit here on as we get close to the hour, and look, don't get spicy. Don't do anything crazy, and I know you won't. But I am, because I've got this journalism degree, and I went out and worked in the field doing spy stuff, and you have to be hyper accurate. I mean, you can get things wrong, but you've got to do a good job. Man, I'm disappointed about some of the news reporting, especially sports reporting I see when I could sniff out someone's politics in a story
Mhm.
about a left fucking fielder or something, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so, especially with the A's, and I guess this is the way I'll crack into this. Like when you see all this reporting, these are legitimate news reporters who write things, and it seems like they seed their story with things that are shareable, so it can get put on X and tag the name. And with the A's, there is a lot of nonsense. I'm not giving owners a pass, but I don't know what a good owner or a bad owner is. I can be told what it is. Oh, this person's the worst one in all history. Like they can't all be the worst in all history, right? Like
Right.
they can't all be Marge Schott or whatever,
Right.
whoever we're going to pick. Is John Fisher a great guy? I have no idea. I don't really care who the owner is. I do care who the GM is and how well they do. All of these things go into this. And there's a dude from Sacramento. I'm not even going to name his name because it doesn't really matter. He's just the example here. And he goes to the game at Sutter Health, which is the AAA facility for the River Cats, which everybody raved about.
Yeah.
Loved that place until the A's got there, and all of a sudden it became a shithole or something.
Yeah.
Even though
Yeah.
now it's
Right.
it's possibly the best AAA park in all of America because it does
It
have some major league things.
it has a nice backdrop, actually. That the
Yeah,
bridge too. I mean, it is a nice backdrop. I'll give it credit for
yeah,
that.
and it's got more facilities. When this dude said, "Look, they put us in a shed," and it was tented space, and I'm like, "You motherfucker! I know for a fact any sports reporter at all has worked in tented space.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they still do, but at the Masters, I'm positive they have tented space. I'm positive at the World Series, the Super Bowl, over and over and over again. They put the press, they accommodate the press, they put them where they can. And in this case, not much time between, hey, we're moving to Sutter to that. But he represented that, and people have run with it. And I would never say something. I don't mind being critical of an organization, but I would never say something so patently false as that. And then here's the thing: is nobody had a peep when the A's put up a tent and they did their groundbreaking. Not a fucking peep about tents because it's totally normal to do that. So that's my rant about. I did get so disappointed, and I'll say Susan Slusser's name online because she writes things. She wrote something and quoted her own piece and pulled the name out of her source and said a former state senator. Like, don't do that. Just be straight up and down and let the
Yeah.
story be the story. So says Pete. I'm shutting up now.
No, no. I mean, I think it's there's some integrity that's involved too, and I can't fully speak on behalf of the other
Of course.
journalists and what their decisions and what they write is, and but for my own being and for how I operate, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a privilege to be able to do this job first of all, and so to look at it as I deserve these certain things, and we need this here and here, like every place operates differently. I've had the chance to work at Jerry World, and Jerry World, you get a nice big seat with a perfect view of the football field, right? And
Yeah.
they like literally have had. I was there for a TCU Ohio State game, awesome game, and they were cutting like New York strips like in front of us. I mean, it was
Jeez.
crazy, right? Yeah, I mean, like Jerry, as much hate as Jerry gets, he treats the media really, really well in
Right.
his press box. I will say that. And then Dodger Stadium, I was there for the World Series. They have like just a whole like all you can eat hot
It's so
dog
good.
station.
It's
Yeah,
so
it's
great.
great. It's fantastic. And the Rangers, great press additions. Like with the new ballpark, I guess it's not really new anymore, but I mean, the way that they treat their press up there, fantastic. Cincinnati does a fine job. I've been fine with it. Angels was whatever. Like, but here's the thing: they don't have to do any of this. Like,
Right.
you're doing your job. You're not doing it for them. And so, is it ideal to be in like AC or to have a nice seat? Sure, but like, you have to realize there are certain conditions and there's certain ways about this. And so, and I mean, with the ballpark in Sacramento, it's not like they had all this time in the world to decide how to handle a mass capacity and more media than usual. Like, that's just the reality of it. I do a lot of coverage with the Louisville Bats, and I love the Bats. I think they treat me so well, and like they are working within the confines of what they're given, right? And so they give me like a premier spot to shoot video, and we get to go in the press box, and it's a minor league stadium, but like they do a really good job to try and at least accommodate, right? And so I look at it more as respect the accommodation and less about what did you not give me. And so that's just the reality of it. I definitely, you mentioned it, like just during the College World Series, or at least leading up to it in the Super Regional in Louisville, like they didn't have enough spots in the press box, which understandable. Like it's a college press box. Like there's only so much you could do. So they had the media, they set up, tables outside down the third base line, and they had the media working there, and they were accommodating enough to like make sure fans that were standing were like separated. So there was, a little bit of gap. So they weren't like hunched over us. I thought that was perfectly great. And it was hot. It rained a little bit, like not the best conditions, but they did their best. Right. And so shout out to Louisville for treating their media very well too, because they do everything in their power. And sometimes you have to work within the confines of what you're given. So I don't fully believe in like trying to, knock an organization for like where they're putting media and whatnot. Like it is what it is. It's just part of it. And sometimes it's not the easiest. Sometimes it's not the most lavish. You have to suck it up and deal with it. Like that's just what it comes down to at the end of the day. And then when it comes to like, pushing your own work, kind of to that second point that you made, I mean, a lot of it is like promote yourself without like trying to like make yourself sound one-sided or, you got to be level-headed. That's always the objective, right? You have to be an objective journalist. And so I think the thing that I struggle with the most is that I'm a baseball fan. I love baseball, and I grew up a diehard Dodgers fan. And so there's the Dodgers fandom in me. So I will openly tweet about the Dodgers. But like the moment the Dodgers play the Reds, like they are today, actually, like I'm not going to tweet about that particularly. I'll probably send I'll take a little photo and I'll be like, made my way back to see the boys. That's about all I'll do. But like, I'm not actively going to be going one way or the other, because you have to remain objective. And I do cover the Reds as part of my coverage zone here. So I'm not, like going to be one-sided on that. And I think sometimes people have a hard time finding that balance, or they want to really promote their own quotes and stuff. It's so weird with X now too, because you can make money off of, the amount of following that you have. So a lot of times people will put things out there that just turn heads a lot. I'm guilty of it occasionally if it's like I actually want to know an answer of what people are thinking, but I won't do it just to try and get follows. Like, I think that's ridiculous. But people will legitimately say something super ridiculous, super off the edge, like just to get a reaction, because they know whether it's a positive or negative reaction, they're getting interactions, right? And I think that's where journalism is being tested now, is people are able to make money off these sites and do this. And I don't agree with it if you're a journalist. Like, I think if you're doing something productive or you're creating a conversation, that's different. But just actively, saying things or promoting your own work in a way that's like, I'm the exclusive, blah, 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 this. It's just not my speed. Not my speed at all.
Yeah, and there's a fine line. Maybe it's in this. Maybe you can't tell if you're on the fan side of things, but Skip Bayless, not a journalist. Skip Bayless is an opinion-based guy. And so,
Stephen A. Smith,
right,
same with Stephen A.
right.
Stephen A.
They might,
Smith is, oh my gosh, yes, drives
yeah.
me crazy. Drives me crazy.
And so when you read the news, you have to, and this is just because not only do I have this reporting background, but I also have worked in information operations, and learned how these guys craft things. And so when you see their work represented, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just an information operation. Like you're just writing something to influence me, and it's okay to sell your story, but the integrity you lose, I don't know that you can reliably win that back, because I know I cut reporters loose, and I'm like, you know what? Too much of you, not enough of the story, and so I just don't ever read their stuff again, because I don't have time for that. I have other options. I'd rather read your news than someone who's going to try to convince me of something, especially if they're like openly political in their thread or whatever it is. I'm just going to bypass it. Maybe I'm unique in that, but I just don't tolerate too much opinion in the news. Now, if you're writing an opinion piece, hey, God bless, like let's go crazy, right? But if you're writing hard news, even hard sports journalism news, just stick to that story. It's great
Yeah,
already,
yeah,
you know?
yeah. I think so. This is where the passion does hit me quite a bit more, because I'm glad you kind of set it up that way. I believe whenever I'm doing a story that there's 99% of the stories you see me do are going to have me voicing something over, or, fronting it probably about 15-20% of the time. I don't like putting myself in for more than 75% of the story unless it's needed, because the story is supposed to be generally about somebody else, right? And so I
Right.
want them to tell their story. I want their voice, not mine. My voice is just to help segue, right? Like, storytelling for me is, I'm kind of that person that's going to let you, I'm the river, the person can float the river, and I'm going to let them be
Right.
the one on top, like actually being the face of everything. I'm just here to be that platform for them. And so
Right.
that's how I operate, is like, watch any of my stories like that, you'll see short tracks. Like, I will not speak except for maybe factual information that needs to be out there. And yeah, politics, like, put them to the side. I'm not. I'm very open about this. I'm not particularly political, anyways. Like, I
Right.
just believe my faith is the most important thing, and with that, I believe in, treating it like, love your neighbors yourself. That's kind of the avenue there, and I believe that my work and who I am and how I treat other people is a direct reflection of, like, what Jesus would want, to have as a reflection of his people. And so that's what I try to do. And, I'm not going to force that in on anybody. It's just how I operate, right? Like, it's how I want to treat people, and I want people to be treated well. And, um, I, I mean, you see it all over my social media profile. Like, the only thing that is really out in your face is not even shoved in people's face. It's, you do your research, you'll see Acts 16:31 on my page. That's
Yeah.
that's as
Yeah.
simple as that. I ain't saying anything more. Like, I'm just here to represent him in the best way that I can, and love other people. And I I just could care less about politics. If we're being completely honest with you, like, that is
Yeah.
just not me. And that's why I love sports,
Yeah.
because it's supposed to be kind of that escape from that. And you can tell stories about people, stories about accomplishments,
Yeah.
stories about the struggle and how they overcame. Maybe, and it may be sadder, maybe somebody that's having to deal with something, and you tell the story of that. But I don't need to force opinions. I don't need to force that kind of stuff on other people. I just try to love other people, tell good stories, and appreciate the journey along the way, because that to me is what's important in this life. And life is too short to get up in arms about certain things. And I'd rather make an impact. And my dad said it best. Like, he goes by the fish principles, and one of those principles is, do your best to make somebody's day, right? And
Yeah.
so that's kind of how I see it, is try to make somebody's day. Like, why are we trying to tear people down? I don't understand it, if we're being
Yeah.
completely honest. I will never understand people that will go on, like, social media and just dog somebody just because, and people make, like, accounts just to hate. Like, that's a really sad way to live. Like,
Yeah.
it just is. And there's obviously something that goes deeper with that, and probably something that is either really hard to cure or fix. Something somebody's been born with. I don't know. That's not my business.
Yeah.
But that's just a really sad way to live. And
Yeah.
I'm here to live life as positively as I can and to make an impact because, when you're given a platform, use it for the man above. That's what I'm doing. So I
I love
want
that.
people, yeah, I want people to see reflection and, hopefully they do, right? Like, hopefully they
Yeah,
see that. And also, it's not just what we put out online, it's who we work with. And so I really do believe in camaraderie amongst coworkers, and I've always believed in that. I've always been fairly close to my coworkers, and some people are like, "Oh, do you talk to this person?" When I'm like, I literally work with them. I see them every day. Of course, like I know these people.
yeah.
Like, we have this woman at our station. Her name is Dawn G, and Dawn G is like a local legend, and it's no shock why, because she is so sweet, so beloved for good reason. She's just got this like perfect, sweet voice, like amazing person too. And
Mm,
having the opportunity to work with somebody like that and to see her, even with an interaction for like 5 seconds, like I can't walk past Don G without a hug. It's just how it
I
is.
love it.
And
No,
she's so nice, like just a
no.
nice human being, genuine human being, um, as authentic off air as she is on screen. And that's what I want to do. Like that's how I want it to be. Like I don't want to be somebody on screen and then come off as somebody completely different, right? Like it's just not who
Yeah,
I am. So
yeah.
what you see is what you get. I also don't have like a fake news voice. Like this, what you're hearing right now is quite literally like how I broadcast.
Yeah,
The only difference is I probably say dude and chill more off air than anything else. And then I always have to remind myself, like, hey, cut to California a little bit. Just cut it a little bit because that might be the
yeah,
one slightly different thing. Because I do
yeah,
use the word dude every now and then, or man. I do say the word man quite a bit. Like, what up,
yeah,
man? How's it going? I have to chill out on that a little bit. See, I even use the
yeah,
word chill. So
yeah.
that's the only difference. But that's authenticity is super important, man.
Yeah, well, that's the whole thing. When I'm talking, I'm keeping track of several things at one time. I'm thinking, what does the audience need? What do you need? What does the show need? And part of that is, where's my voice? Is my voice down here deep in my chest, or am I getting excited? And it's okay to have excitement, but I'm aware of all of that. I'm
Right.
also aware, usually when I say the word fuck or whatever it is, I'm saying that on purpose for color, but it's because I'm professional. In real
Yeah.
life, I don't have that. Yeah, I'm just talking, right? But you
Yeah.
have a job to do when you're on camera, trying to communicate clearly. I'll slow down and say something. I might take something you say and have you say it again, because I'm trying to communicate the idea. So I am working the entire time we're doing this. I was actually sending text because someone sent me a text about the show while we were, I'm doing all of this stuff at the same time,
Right.
because that's what professional grade work looks like. I don't want to take any more of your time, but I do want to give you a chance to close out or even ask me any questions if you have any. Otherwise, love to have you back. And thank you so much for coming on the show. Do you have anything you
Yeah.
want to ask me? Anything in closing? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. First of all, when are we doing this again? Because this has been a great time. I've really enjoyed this. We got to make this
Super
happen
soon.
again.
Yeah, we will
Yeah,
for sure.
we got to make this happen super soon. I got to ask you about your fandom because I am curious about that. So,
Yeah.
are you so specifically on the baseball side? I know that you follow the Dodgers. Kind of take me through your fandom.
Yeah. When I grew up in the Bay, for whatever reason, I just took to LA a little bit. So, it's 400 miles away, but it's not that far. And they were really good in the late 70s, early 80s when my baseball fandom kind of clicked on. But also, I grew up in the Bay, so I loved the A's. And in my time, you could love the A's and the Giants, and it wasn't really a problem. And the Bay Area is kind of bandwagony, like so. So back in the early '80s, the Raiders were coming off a really great run from the '70s, and the Niners stunk. They had OJ on the team. They were terrible. And then all of a sudden they were good. So it went from being like, who's a Raiders fan? Rah! Who's a Niners fan? Boo. And then the next year it's like Niners. And so we would go back, and then the Raiders went to the Super Bowl, and the Niners went to Super, and so it was like very back and forth. So that was very normal when I grew up. And so I don't mind rocking an A's hat, and I'll wear any hat. I'm wearing a Twins hat right now because I went
I
to a
like
Twins
that.
game.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
like it. Yeah.
I went to a game, and I always try to spend some money at the yard. Now, if Major League Baseball makes me hungry, the money drops down, and I don't spend as much money. But I always try to support the team. I support it, in the team store. I'm not trying to get knockoff stuff because I appreciate the amount of entertainment I get from it. I lived across the street from Wrigley Field in right field. You're
Awesome.
going to be a Cubs fan when you do that. And it was in '03, that season when they were great and almost went to the World Series with Dusty Baker and the boys, all doing it. I used to live in Florida, and so I repped the I wore a Marlins hat on combat missions for like a year until it just wore out, right? So I'm still passionate. I've always been passionate about the A's. I will still be passionate about the Dodgers. They're my home teams. That's where like my heart mostly is. And by the way, thanks for asking this because people online will try to determine my level of fandom. It's like, no, 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 I'm in charge of that, and I'm
Yeah.
very comfortable
Yeah.
with where I'm at. I adore the Yankees. I just, I wouldn't say I'm a fan because I know what the level of passion is for fandom in Yankeeville. That's not me. But man, oh man, I just can't get enough. I check their box scores. I have all kinds of players I follow. I love every California team. So I love the Padres. I love the Cal Bears. I just want to support my home state. I'm not like and this. I think you'll get this. If the Cubs play the White Sox in the World Series, okay, you have an inner city thing. Okay, or intercity
That'd
thing.
be
It's like,
wild, by the way. That'd be
yeah,
nuts if that happened.
it would be nuts if the Cardinals played the White Sox. Cubs fans would root for their arch enemy, the Cardinals. Like that's my. I asked everybody about this. And they're like, no, fuck the White Sox. And I'm like, God, really? Over your arch enemy? They're like, yeah, but we hate the White Sox even more. But you're all Blackhawks fans. Oh yeah, no, we all love the Blackhawks, and you all love the Bears. Yeah, we all. So I don't get. I'm not down like that. And because of my sports journalism attempt to become into that, I was taught like, hey, you can't openly root for anybody. No rooting in the press box. Even though I was excited when I got to sit in the Dodgers press box with the press pass, you know, I was excited. I was having root beer
Yeah.
floats, and it was Frank Sinatra night. How can you not be excited about that? So that's sort of my answer is I just want to enjoy sports first and foremost. If the dot and here's another thing when the playoffs happen, my ranking for who I want to win goes to have they ever won a World Series? Have they won what's the longest drought? So like this year, I would love to see the Brewers take on the Mariners in the World Series. Like that'd be my ideal matchup,
Yeah.
right? Because look, it's hard to win a World Series, and if you don't win every 30 years, well then you're out of parity. And I would love to see other. I love it the Rangers won. I love it the White Sox broke their drought and the Cubs and I want that to happen for different fan groups because I think it's good for the game. And I want these other fellow fans of mine to have a little taste of that championship thing. I don't care about the ratings. I just care about people getting to see their team do well. And so I'm not bandwagony. I'm going to root for if the Dodgers play the A's. I'm just going to be glad that there's a good game ultimately
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
teams lose 60 games a year no matter what. What am I going to get all precious for? Like they're not going to
Right.
go 162 and nothing. I'm not that kind of fan, but I can appreciate. I could sit with you and I could watch the Rangers, or I could go watch the Reds, and I would love to hear you talk all about them and
Mhm.
and have a good time. And that's kind of where my fandom rests. Does that make sense? Is that fair?
No, I love that answer, and I think that I really actually agree with pretty much everything that you had said there. It's interesting. My answer 12, 13 years ago would be so different than what it is now because I would have said, "Oh, it's Dodgers for life, and I
Yeah.
hate everybody else." Like that's what would the answer would have been for me. But now that I'm in this kind of situation where like you're never going to see me ever hate on the Reds, right? You're
Right.
never going to see me hate on the Rangers. You're never going to see me hate on the Mariners. Wonder why? Well,
Yeah.
it's because there are certain teams that I either have or will build relationships with, and you see how they operate, and you know how their fan bases are, and how it means to them. And like when the Rangers won the World Series, man, like that was pretty cool. That was really cool because
Yeah.
I'd covered that team, and I know what it means to those people that like have been waiting and dying for a World Series, and all they do is count down to Cowboy season because they're never used to seeing the Rangers go deep in the playoffs. Like
Right.
that's why that happens. Everybody's like, oh, it's just Cowboy country. Well, no, it's the Rangers just hadn't done the deed, right? And now that they have, I think that it's pretty clear. Okay, the Rangers actually have a very good fan base, right? Very strong fan base. I will give the Reds a lot of credit. This is a very passionate fan base, and I've gained a
Sure.
lot of respect for them. Opening day is so cool here, like to be able to see how they handle the parade, and there's no opening day that's better than the Reds opening day. It is really a spectacle, and I think everybody that's a baseball fan should experience it at least once because the parade is like a massive deal, and then they go straight into the ballpark, and it's just really, really a cool scene. And I'm actually excited. I'm the day of recording here. I'm actually going to the Dodgers Reds game, so that'll be really
Oh,
fun.
nice.
I'm very much looking forward to that. But I'm a Dodgers fan at heart, and that's never going to change. And I'll always love the Dodgers, right?
Yeah.
And so that's just the truth. But the way that I view other teams, is different because if I cover you, then I probably have seen a different side of your organization. And I can bet that I've seen that for the majority of teams, anyways. The Louisville Cardinals, man, have hit me in a different way. Like, I never
Hmm.
thought in my life that I would be like stoked for Louisville. Like where in the world did that come from, right? But now,
Yeah.
now I'm like, okay, it's super cool seeing Cards Nation show up to different places, and
Yeah.
I mean, they've welcomed me here with open arms. It's been really special, actually. They could have easily just rejected me, and they haven't. And that goes to the media. Like, I've had pretty much every media member, for the most part, that I've met here has been incredible. Like, super kind, authentic. I've met some legends. Rick Bozich is a great name to know. Was a great writer, just retired. Was just super awesome to get to know over the time here. But so, you kind of adapt to who you're covering and who you're working with. So I kind of grow a special place in my heart for those teams that I cover.
Yeah.
And with that being said, like when that move to Seattle inevitably happens here sooner than later, the Mariners are going to feel that same way. And
Sure.
what a time to be out there, because the Mariners are actually a very solid team right now, and
Yeah.
they just made the move for Josh Naylor. I'm expecting they're going to be making more moves here with the deadline approaching, and so that's like, I think that they see an opportunity with the youth of their pitching and actually some decent depth in the lineup too. So I'm very excited. I mean, I'm very excited to see the Mariners doing what they're doing. And 12 year ago, Dusty would have been like, I don't care about any team but the Dodgers.
Yeah.
So that is the difference when you're in this industry is, okay, I can have an appreciation for other franchises, other organizations, other universities
Yeah.
that go beyond just the Dodgers and TCU, right? Because I bleed purple and I bleed blue. Like that's who I am. And just over my shoulder, I have a let's see if I can get my finger right there. That's a TCU jersey that Gary Patterson had given us when we worked for him, and super awesome coach, great human being. I still try to keep up with him when I can, but I always will bleed blue and purple, but that doesn't mean I can't have an appreciation for different schools like Louisville, like the University of Washington, Abilene Christian, ACU, making their run in the college
Yeah.
in NCAA tournament, beating Texas. Like, such a cool ride. It actually gave me chills when they beat
Yeah.
Texas. And 5 years before, I would have been like, who the heck is ACU? And
Right.
when that happened, I'm like, oh my gosh, like ACU just beat Texas. Like that's
Yeah.
got to be the coolest thing I've seen. So yeah, I definitely have built some great relationships. And Larry Lee of Cal Poly baseball, awesome human being, awesome coach. His son Brooks Lee is actually with the Minnesota Twins now. He's an infielder for the Twins. Was their first round pick back in 2023, I want to say 24. I think it was 23. No, 22. 2022, Brooks Lee, first round draft pick. And so Larry Lee, his dad, awesome guy. And you make these connections through this job. So super, super thankful.
Love it.
And yeah, man, I just think people need to appreciate sports and hate less, appreciate more. I think that's the key.
I love it. It makes someone's day every day. That's one of my philosophies too. And I love that your dad runs that, because it's a good way to run your life. And it all goes back to Vince Scully, where we started. If you get your shot and you don't have a sport coat with you or a jacket at all, and they're like, you're gonna work on the roof of the fucking Fenway ballpark,
Uh,
you know, you go out there and you do your damn job, and you just do that, and you just be a great person all the time, so that at the end of your life, if you get a long one, all there are is just a wake of people that are thrilled to have known you. I'd
yeah,
rather build that legacy than to be the crappy person who starts with an insult and then tells you why you're wrong. It's like, oh,
yep.
look, have a healthy banter, but try to find ways to lift people up, because you know the alternative is really crappy, and there's
It's
plenty
really
of
crappy.
negative forces in the world
Yeah,
already trying to tear it down. Let's all kind of lift it up a little bit, or not, whatever you want to do. But yeah,
right.
that's just how I think. All right, I'm really gonna
What?
shut it down. What else do you want to say?
Well, what one day, like I said, this life is short. You do want people to remember you for the impact you made, right? And so
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to do every day. And I think you just have to, swallow like your pride a little bit and look people in the eye and remember that everybody is an equal person to you, right? And so
Yeah.
just because you're given a platform doesn't mean that that makes you any more special than anybody else. And so I'm just grateful for the opportunities. I'm here to tell good stories. above all, like represent the Lord and then make an impact, man. So I'm grateful to have talked to you, because this has been awesome. And I think for the people listening, I hope that it inspires them to do that, right? Like to be able to go out and just have a positive impact. And even when times get tough, man, there's an opportunity to know that you still are in a very good position to make somebody else's day.
Yeah, I love it. All right, hang in there. I'll come back and say goodbye to you, everybody else. I'll see you all tomorrow.